most all of us, I got to ask this. I mean, most of us come in this program, we're destroyed. We're spiritually bankrupt. We're weak. People look at, I would walk out of the house when I was drinking. I was sitting there drinking all day long, and I would, with the food, with the booze, with the drugs, whatever it was, I'd walk out of the house. I can give you a good example. I'd open the door and reach. First of all, I didn't want to see the sun come up. I'd have the shades closed, of course, but I'd reach my hand out. The mailbox was on the side of the door. Imagine the insanity the self-will brings us to. This is the ego. And I was afraid because I was afraid neighbors would see me or something, and even reaching my hand out to get the mail. It's called self-delusional paranoia. But you think that's crazy? Think about your own lives. All of the time you get upset if you're thinking about something at work or somebody in your family, and these all situations that happen in your life and bother you. It's all the same thing. It's insanity. Look, if a person does something and yells at you, that's not the right thing to do, and that's pretty insane. They say hurt people, so they have a real issue and real problem. But who's the insane one? When we react to them, when we go through, we're like, and on page 66, people, it says, have the power over us with our resentment. Again, when you let go, when you just don't make it about you, you can go out and, like Bill here did in Ebby, you take on the world. You walk in a room and you don't care what people think. You could be talking to a person and you're telling them something and they're looking at you like what it's some kind of stupid thing, like, why are you telling me this? I don't care how they're looking or what they're saying. That's their issue and their problem. I can't figure that. They say you become crazy trying to figure out a crazy person, right? Again, by trying to figure out a crazy person, you can become crazy. So I don't have to worry about their plans and designs. I know in deep within me, like children are happy, free when they're playing. We have that ability when we get out of the self, when we lose ourselves. And that's what these steps talks about, because step 3 says it alone. You want the answer, read step 3, turn our will and our lives over to God, right? What more do we have to say? And it said, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. So again, in relation to our food and the water, if you want to have that change of perception, the diets don't work. I had the name of the topic was, how do I build my self-esteem? How do I build my diet? If I try to control the food and try to say, I shouldn't eat this or no, it's when we have, because then we're working from the self-will, just like we're in fear. And when we're in fear, and when we're something like a diet brings us to fear, and when even if we overindulge and we have fear, we always have to be positive in God's intuitive thinking. Then we could feel we feel our stomach. We feel when we're full, and we feel that we can keep away from it. We'll be in a point of neutrality, like the 10-step promises say, because we don't need it anymore. Why would we take something that's going to harm us psychologically and physically if we understand? And when we get out of the self, we have all comprehension and understanding when we have that new consciousness. So when we see this big plate of food, we don't want it anymore. When we see those drinks, like I always talk about the water, and we see a drink with 1,200 calories, but we come from that confidence and higher power, our body's God's temple. I'm telling you, these steps related to the food, the addiction to the drugs, the alcohol, to people, it solves all of our problems. I mean, what does all mean? All means all of them. I mean, these men were changed men. And then when you read the stories talks about these people were down and out. And then at the end, a spiritual solution. Believe me, it works. Billions of people in this world. But no, we in our crazy thinking, the way we're brought up with this material society, the hardest thing, it's an easy program. But a lot of people here just don't understand. It's the giving up with the addictions, the food, surrendering finally. You can't do it. And every time during the day, you try to be nicer to, look, do you realize when you try to be nice to people, you're still trying to control them? You're coming from the ego. We're either being too nice, or we're being assertive and yelling at people, and getting upset and resentful and angry. And then we wonder why we're miserable. We wonder why everybody else around us is miserable too. So the answer's here. It's all in this, be still and that's it, and quiet, and be prayer. And again, this God consciousness is inside of us all the time. We buried it. We kept out the sunlight of spirit with our defects of character. Just understand, somebody wins the lottery, they're happy, they go out, nothing can bother them for a day. But we won the lottery. When you wake up, realize that this God consciousness, we were made in God's image, that it's there. It's always there. As soon as you get out of self, you wake up. As soon as I got on my addictions and I did these steps, I'd love to get up in the morning and go out the door and see the sunlight. because I wasn't carrying the world around my shoulder. Ego, it was the ego, the pride, the seven deadly sins. I had a new way of thinking. It's that fourth dimension where all of these things I can enjoy them outside of me, but when something in my life could get me upset, I don't think about it that way anymore. I rose above it. And then if I don't, I go to what's called the step 10, and I bring it to the front, and we have all of these beautiful things in this book, the sick man prayer, talking about praying for other people, and on page, that's 66 and 67. It's the fourth step prayer, actually. That perception change, having love. And can you imagine if you're at work and your boss yells at you and you have love, tolerance, and patience for them, and you get out of the self? The changing, they'll just see it in your eyes, and they'll feel like, and there's no resistance there. They'll have to stop. They'll have to change. When I change, the world around me change. I'm telling you, this spiritual awakening, this whole program, these steps will change your life. But how many people, 85% of all the people I see don't want to work, don't want to have that faith. The grace of God will come in, the higher consciousness, power of the universe. There's energy all around us, but we don't feel it. We're into the little self. We come home and my best friend was my alcohol, right? You come home, you close the shades and you get the food, and that becomes your higher power. That's what it is, that momentary pleasure. But boy, does it destroy, it kills you. It kills you. So you want to stay away from it as a stove, right? A hot flame. But we couldn't do it. It says in here on page 24 that no matter what happens, we didn't remember the devastation and the thing. We couldn't put it to mind because we're coming from the self. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that was our problem. So, again, we have a better way. But anyway, that's enough. So at this point, what we'll be doing